Dobry wieczór Państwu. Witają Państwa Piotr Nawalkowski i Jakub Konior ze Stowarzyszenia Polaris OPP.
Good evening, I'm Piotr Nawalkowski and together with Jakub Konior, we welcome you on behalf of the Polaris OPP Association.
Rozpoczynamy pierwszy anglojęzyczny meeting w ramach projektu Racjonalna Polityka Oświetleniowa w Praktyce, finansowany ze środków funduszu EOG, Aktywni Obywatele, Fundusz Regionalny.
We are starting the first international meeting online in English as a part of the project called Rational Lighting Policy in Practice, financed by EEA funds, Active Citizens Regional Program.
Przypominamy o możliwości wysłuchania tłumaczenia dzisiejszego meetingu z języka angielskiego na język polski za pośrednictwem kanału w programie Discord. Link podajemy na czacie programu Zoom.
We would like to remind you about the possibility of listening to the Polish interpretation of today's meeting via the Discord channel. The link will be provided in the Zoom chat.
Oddaję zatem głos mojemu koledze Jakubowi, który przedstawi Państwu naszego dzisiejszego gościa, prelegenta i zaczynamy.
Now I give the floor to my colleague Jakub, who will introduce you to our guest today. Okay, so thank you very much. Once again, good evening and welcome everyone to our third international meeting with experts. We are very excited to welcome our lecturer from Norway, Dr. Arne Follestad, a research ecologist at Norwegian Institute of Nature Research. He is an active contributor to meetings and conferences on light pollution in Norway. Today, he will be speaking about the impact of light on nature, which is a very interesting topic. We are also happy to welcome members of the local Social Dialogue Council for Nighttime Ecology and Dark Sky Protection in Sopotnia Wielka, who are participating in today's meeting. And let me now quickly introduce you to the meeting rules. The project is realized by the Polaris OPP Association in cooperation with international partners from Norway, Slovenia. During this meeting, the participants aren't allowed to turn on their video cameras and microphones. However, we are free to use the Zoom chat for the purpose of asking questions, discussions, etc. If you wish to listen to the Polish interpretation, please join the appropriate Discord channel. The link will be posted in the chat. There is also a Polish sign language interpreter available in the Zoom. All right, so I think we can now proceed with our lecture. I'm now giving the floor to Dr. Arne Follestad. Doctor, could you quickly introduce yourself before the lecture?
Yeah, I can do. I'm working as a researcher at, as was said, Norwegian Institute for Nature Research in Norway. I've been working mostly with birds connected to human activities like wind farms, oil spills, and much other cases. So I've not done any research myself on light pollution, but I'm quite updated on what will be the effects of light in nature. So that will be focus on my talk today.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Thank you very much. So we are waiting for the lecture. We can now share your screen.
Okay, I'll try.
Okay. Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, you can see it now. Good.
Yeah. You can start.
The title of my talk today is The Impact of Light on Nature, or it could as well have been ecological consequences of artificial night lighting. There will, of course, be some natural light in nature from the full moon and so on, but we are now talking about artificial light during the night. That's also a title of a book that was published in 2006, and I can recommend that as a very good book, an introduction to the problems. The picture you see on the screen is taken from my home city. It's trees living close to street lamps, and you can see the one with a street lamp very close to it has still much of the leaves present, as the other ones without the light have very few left. And that can in fact also be very important for the trees, how they can survive through the winter. If there is a sudden snowfall, they can break branches and so on. So it's just an example to show that also plants can be very heavily affected by
Doctor, we can't hear you right now. Can you unmute your microphone?
Well, now I unmuted it.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I just got a message that you unmuted me. Okay. The background for my work is a report I wrote in some years ago on effects of streetlights on the new roads crossing wetland area in Norway. The report has 13 pages with references, so there's a lot of studies on this matter, but very few in Norway, and none in winter, when we have snow and ice that may reflect light into surrounding areas. And also, we have a very long night, so but nothing has been done to study the effects in my country. And what I realized when I made this report was the negative effects were very widespread, much more than I could anticipate, from green algae to humans. But in this talk, only a few examples can be given. I will also talk a little about mitigating measures, about smart solutions. They will depend on today's technology, the local fauna and area. So there's smart solutions are coming up. So maybe we can try to solve some of these problems in the future. And there are also an increasing international attention on how light pollution and noise may affect our health. And this is also maybe some of the background for your organization to cooperate with Norway. I also were a member of the scientific board on this in this organization you are cooperating with, Bevar Mørket. I'm then the one who take care of the ecological effects in nature. Just some words about light pollution. It's when the darkness of the night disappears, and that's caused by too much light at the wrong place at the wrong time. We can look upon two different effects with it. One is the astronomical light pollution, the sky glow, when a lot of people then can't see the stars or the Milky Way. I'm not going to talk anything or very little about that. I will concentrate on what we call the ecological light pollution when nature is affected. Light can be turned against the sky, and the sky glow you can get can unshield light, can hide and make it difficult to see the stars and the Milky Way and so on. You can also you can unshield lights that can cause both astronomical and ecological light pollution. But you can also, like in the bottom of the figure, turn the light to the ground, and you will avoid much of the astronomical light pollution. But that light will still affect animals, and it's not a coincidence that I show there's a frog in this picture. I will come back to that later. We want to see the sky like this, with the stars and the Milky Way and the other, like the Big Dipper and so on. It's beautiful to go out and observe all this. For many of us, we experience also the experience like observing the stars and Milky Way and Northern Light, like you have on the left side, is replaced with street lights and flashing neon lights. It's a total different habitat. We can adapt to this city life and in many also enjoy it, but a lot of animals can't do or can't live with so much light, so they will skip or disappear from the cities, while others that can live in such light conditions can thrive and still be among us. Sky glow may affect nature several tens of kilometers from urban areas. And so you can see here, it's photograph from satellites showing the light in a large part of Europe. And you can also see some areas seems to be total lighted, while Poland is not that lighted, but a lot of areas have a lot of light. And I read that most of Finland, you can't hardly be anywhere without having some sky glow. So a lot of areas are affected by this light pollution. And several countries have introduced guides and regulations and law to limit the effect of this, but nothing in Norway. I'm in fact not, I don't know what is the case for Poland, but I hope that this will come in Norway as well. Just a short picture or talk about the visible light, just to pinpoint that animals, birds and so on, can experience the light in many different ways. We see some three colors shown up in upper picture here, while birds can see in different parts of the spectrum, and others can see other parts of the light. So it's just important to remember that how we can look at nature, the colors we can see may be totally different from what a lot of animals can see. They can see ultraviolet and infrared light and so on. We can't. And some birds also, or insects, can also see polarized light when the light is shown in two planes instead of all directions. I won't go deeper into this figure. You can study it yourself if you want to do. But insects may, as they can see polarized light, they can mistake an asphalt road for water because they polarize the light in the same way. So a lot of times insects like here swarming chirinid or mosquitoes, they can swarm like this above asphalt road, thinking it's water. They should land on the water and go on the surface and reproduce themselves. Because trying to do this on the road is a catastrophe for a lot of them. So here we should, it's not a light pollution, but it's an illustration on how different certain animals can experience light and our surroundings. Light, and especially also the darkness, is very important for many organisms. What I want to show by this table here is the differences between the full moon compared to the night moon. It's very little illumination from the moon, even if it's full or new. But still, these differences may be very important for a lot of animals. If you go out on the full moon, a predator like a fox or an owl can see you if you're a mouse or something, and they behave totally different when it's full moon or new moon. So if such small differences between so much, what then about the illumination from urban areas? I'm thinking about that. A lot of animals won't thrive close to urban areas like cities and other. So this is gave me started to think about what are we doing in the nature, because many animals when it's lighted, they miss the safety the darkness will give them. If no one can see them, they feel really safe. But if they have to go out and anyone can see them, they are very careful and influence also their search for food. Some possible effects of this night lighting: it can disrupt the foraging behavior and increase the risk of predation. It can disrupt biological clocks. We also humans have such clocks that organize our day. We get sleepy and sleep at the night, and we stand up early in the morning. Our rhythm is made up of these clocks. They can be daily or they can be seasonally. Effects can also, from street lighting, can kill a lot of animals, from insects to moose. I will come a little back to that. But they can also disrupt dispersal movements and the use of corridors. As shown here, you have a songbird, a blackbird, starts singing early in the morning on sites where there's a lot of light, compared to the other birds in the neighboring wood with darkness. So if they start to sing too early, they can be difficult for them to get partners, because they are not matched in the synchronized in this behavior. Roe deer and others may come into cities for feeding, or is it just for safety reasons? Do they feel more safe in our cities, in our gardens, because there's a lot of light. They can see any predator getting close. So they can also find a lot of, better find the food in, let's say, in the garden. I have a lot of roadie in the autumn coming into my garden and eating up all my vegetables. Okay, I let them do that, but and geese. In Norway, at least, we have one species that before used to migrate during the day. Now they all do this migration during midnight when it's dark, and they probably navigate by all these areas with sky glow along the route they have to fly. So it's a very big difference in their behavior. So this is only some examples on how light can affect animals. Roads like this, with a lot of light, a lot of traffic, may act as barriers for a lot of species. It's not that easy for a moose or a hedgehog or what it can be crossing this road. They are quite visible, and they will also be unsafe, can be hit by a car and so on. So this is an important barrier. You can stop or make it very difficult for animals to move from one side of the road to the other. But this is also the case for what we call light rails you have in Norway. This is one example of a light rail going deep into the wood. Look like this. We have lights, so it can be easy to follow these trails, but that they may also create barriers, make it difficult for animals that became very unsure when they have to go out in this light. If they cross the trail, they can be attacked by a fox or any other predator also present in this area. So we are discussing now how can we reduce the negative effects of such trails by maybe using sensors to turn on the light for a while when movements when there are movements at the start of this trail. So if we can find some way to turn off and on the light when there are no one using these areas, that can help the animals. In gardens, you can use light in many different ways. You can, like the figure here, upper left, light can be pointing to the ground. And that will leave all the trees in darkness, or at least more darkness. And then if you have lights on the ground and lighten upwards, like here, you will have a lot of light in the trees. And the animals, birds and others, normally, because they may be being active in the night, will be very unsafe when they can be observed by cats or other animals in this area. So there's been a large discussion in Norway of, is this wise to do, or should we stop it, or should we at least turn off the light during the evening so that most of the night can be dark for the animals living in this area. When I grew up, we had a lot of bats in our neighborhood, and we observed them regularly circling around street lamps. We didn't know then why they did so, but one reason is they can catch insects that are circling around them. So, but bat is not a bat. They are quite different. Some are large, some are small. They can different wings, so they can maneuver. And at the ground, you can have the small animals with they can be highly maneuverable and search for insects and so on that collide with these lamps. If they circle around them, they can get exhausted and fall to the ground, or they can hit the lamp and burn and die for that reason. So there's a lot of food maybe on the ground for frogs and mice and birds. So it's just an example, and important to note that animals may behave quite differently, even if it's a bat or a mouse. We have to study the difference between the species. Why are insects circling around the street lamps? They do so in the night, especially moths. And the moths are very important for us because they are pollinating a lot of the plants that we get much of our food from. So it's important to try to reduce their mortality, because if they disappear, we will have much less food in our. So if you have a full moon, you can see they have an attraction zone about 50 meters. And then we start flying around it. If it's a new moon, much more dark, the attraction zone is maybe up to 400 or 600 meters. So it's one example on how the moonlight can affect them in different ways. But most of the moths are circling around lamps. They, as I said, they may be killed if they get too close to the heated lamp, and they can fall to the ground and die. But why are they circling? Moths, they can fly over large stretches, can fly rather long, but then they use the moon to navigate. They try to keep have the light from the moon. They try to keep a constant angle to this light. So they keep, as long as they keep this angle, they go straight forward. But if they meet a lamp, it can be mistaken as the moon. And then they try to keep up the same angle from the light from this lamp. And then one effect is that they will circle around it and maybe soon get too close. And that can be a rather long distance. So that's why we should think about reducing the use of lights during night. You can see from a cabin in the mountain area in Norway with a street or lamp outside, it's attracting a lot of moths. And I heard about people that has left the door open with light inside. They had a hell of a job just to get rid of all the moths that had come inside the cabin. So they are attracted by light, and as long as they are sitting like this, they won't do the job on pollinating plants. They are very important for us, as I told you, to pollinate a lot of plants. But the numbers has been reduced very much. Just an example from Germany, around 1950, they used one trap, light trap, because as they attracted to lamp, they can, in one night in August, they caught 50,000 moths. quite impressive. Around 1980, to get the same numbers of moths, they had to use one trap from May to September. When they around the year 2000, in the same period, they used 19 traps. Still, they got only 6,000. Why? Why is this happening? There are a lot of explanation to this. I won't go into discuss all the possible explanation, but it is important to try to find out why the numbers has increased and try to stop this reduction in numbers. This is one example. Loss of insect diversity and abundance. There's a decrease, but for those who note that this scale is logarithmic. So there's a 10, and when it's on 2, it's only 20% left from this time. So it's a huge decline for many insects. And also looking for green roofs. That's becoming much more common in many cities. But if you want to have some you see, plants that can give us food on these roofs, we need the insects. But what happens to the insects in urban areas? I saw a paper that in a city like Kiel, with 20,000 street lamps, 3 million insects were estimated to be killed every night, of 360 million per season. And that's a lot. And that maybe make it more understandable for you why is so important to reduce these losses. So when I've been talking to Norwegians, I'm often asked, what about insects in our country? There's been very few long data series like the one from Germany, going back to 1950. But if you're old enough like me, I can remember cars like this. A lot of insects killed on the front of a car, and very difficult to keep the window clean. But nowadays, you rarely experience this. That's a sign for a lot of people on how few insects we still have in Norway. So we also have serious problems, and a lot of projects have been run on pollinating, like the apple trees and berries, just to see how few insects can we still cope with and have a normal production of these fruits. But it's an alarming effect. Well, this is a combination of Norwegian, it's a newspaper article, and it's in German. But it's just to show that there's a large program to preserve the insects in Germany, and they use €1 million each year to try to save them. And that is a very clear example of how important it will be for us to preserve many of the insects that pollinate our plants. If you don't have pollinators, we won't get any tomato, for example, and many others. We know that some species more than others, are especially sensitive to light. Just to give an example here with the frogs, a short flash from a car and its night vision is destroyed for several hours. It's getting blind. So if it can't see, how then can it be able to find and catch the food and avoid predators like birds and others that can catch them? You can go out in nature, try not to see, try to find the berries out in the wood, and try to avoid any danger animals that are coming close to you. So it's a very important effect for the frogs. The reason for this is that the light might bleach pigments in the eye. Because they are chemically changed, and it may not respond to light before it's recovered its original chemical structure. And that might take several hours. So if I started to think, when I grew up, there was a lot of small ponds and dams with a lot of frogs laying their eggs and having what the young is toads. At least, but nowadays I rarely see them. Why? Is it because they are so sensitive to light? It's a short flash from a car, and they are getting blind. So we maybe need to take special care of frogs and other animals to secure that they will not be hit by this light or flash from a car. But one of the most important questions, I think, to answer is, if many sensitive species avoid areas with light pollution, will we then have a fauna or ecosystems with a peculiar species composition in urban areas? And how will these ecosystems differ from natural areas? So what will then characterize our urban ecosystems? How many species will be there? And how many species will not be there because it's too much light? One example with dung beetles. Okay, the new experiments with dung beetles have shown that they may orientate by using stars or the Milky Way in clear nights without moonlight. And this is the first case documenting the ability of animals to do that. So if they don't thrive in urban areas where they can't see and can't orientate by the Milky Way, will we then get a dung problem in our towns and cities? Because they help us to remove this the dung, or so they could see what to call it, and dig them down into the soil and place the eggs in it, so the larvae live in these small balls. So it's I hadn't heard about them before I tried to write up this report I mentioned in the start. But it's very easy to tell that all night pollution, extra light, is negative. But that's not always the case. But it can also be some animals that have an advantage of it. again, in the cities in Norway, they are surprisingly often living close to people. And in some cities in Norway, they have now started to hunt pigeons during the night, because there's so much light in the city, they have no problems to hunt the pigeons. But for the falcon, this light during night may be advantageous, but clearly for the pigeons that miss the safety the darkness should give them, it's a disadvantage. Just another examples. If you think about how many beaches are very close to roads, there can be a lot of waders on this beach. A lot of them, or some of them with long bill, they probe and search for food deep in the mud. For them, light doesn't mean anything. But the waders with short bill, they look for prey items, small shell or worms on the surface. So if there's a street light on the beach, it will be much easier for them to find these animals, because they are much more visible. But again, when they are out on the beach, they are also more visible for predators, cats, and maybe also birds like falcons and others, to go fly out and catch them. So there will always be an advantage and a disadvantage. You have to study how much this in fact means. So just to show, have some words on plants. Just to, as I said, it's known from the greenhouses that small seeds start growing as a response to light, while larger seeds is independent of light. When they start to grow, they react on other responses, changes in the nature. So a lot of light can make the small seeds start growing earlier, maybe out of season. If they start to grow too early, they won't make it and die. What then? So we know also that we have short day plants and long day plants. They may flower at different times dependent on light. And they may change time for flowering by manipulating the amount of light, as they do in greenhouses. And as for the frog, for some plants, a light period of only 1 minute in the middle of the night may be enough to stop flowering. So they can manipulate plants in this way. And I know that in USA, if you go to a shop there to buy plants for your garden, they are divided into 3 groups. Plants sensible to light, because they're in the middle, and plants that can do quite well with a lot of light. So if you want to have plants in the garden with a lot of light, you should choose one of those that can live with it. But I have never seen such a grouping of plants in Norway. I don't know why, but so also plants can react different on a lot of light. So what can we do? There are a lot of mitigating measures to reduce the negative effect of lightning. You can protect areas from artificial light. You can limit the duration of this light. So as I spoke of earlier, you can use sensors that might turn light off on or off or dim it. So there's several ways to do it. But to find the smart solutions, I think we need a multidisciplinary approach operation between ecologists and experts on today's technology. If we can cooperate in this way, we might find solution and try to solve all these negative effects on our nature. One classical examples, classic study, is the protecting how they protected sea turtles from artificial light in Florida on the beaches, where the turtles lay their eggs and the small turtles hatch and then have to move to sea. But if the beach is in this part of the picture, when the turtles, young turtles, see these street lamps, they try to move against the light, away from the sea. But to try to avoid this effect, they put the street lamps in the road. So if you drive a car, you can still see the road where to go by the car, but the turtles on the beach don't see them. So they go to sea, as they should do. That's one simple way to try to solve this the problem for the sea turtles. And I know that also some seabirds in Norway, when they hatch and try to, during night, go out to sea, if there's a street lamps in the area, they search them. So I know some islands in Norway, there's a tradition, but the kids on this island to walk around and pick up all these young puffins, the stranded and don't find their own way back to sea, and help them to go there. So again, there's one example on how light can make it difficult for some birds or animals. Light on bridges, this is one way to do it. It's safe for us to use this bridge, but birds that will not collide with the lamps, they will not start circling around them as they can do in some on lighthouses and other places where the light is high up. So this is a very good solution to avoid a lot of the problems. And also, if you use sensors, this light could be turned on and off and one person is going on the bridge, and when he's left it, light might be turned off. So one important question for us is if we can turn off the light when we don't need it. We need to find a balance between our need for safety, because going in a dark city can be dangerous. You can be attacked by other people and so on. So we need to find a balance for our safety and our care for the nature. That's a very important question to try to work on in the future. I'm coming to the end of my talk now, but it's very important to inform people about this. One brochure from 3 departments in Norway made this brochure for some years ago, but it's all about how to use lights to get our experience, the buildings like churches and a lot of others, to have a nice experience when we are walking in the city. Only one sentence about problems for the nature. So what we are discussing and also planning for Norway is a brochure like this but on how to use light to avoid the negative effects on the nature. I hope that can be done because people really need to be aware of the problems and how they can take care of nature themselves. So there's a lot of literature on this case. Also one book, I hadn't time to read it, but it's on how asphalt surface can act as traps for water-seeking insects. So when you write a whole book on this problem, you should think that it's an important problem to try to do something about. And there's also some places where you can find solution for bird-friendly building design and so on. So there is some information to get if you just try to seek on the internet. My last slide is that we need local studies and of course international cooperation on this. That's why I meet you now and talk to you to try to start an interest for these problems and see how can you in Poland do about this. But just to give an example from birds, as many other organisms, they have seasonal activities every year as for reproduction. They have to start to build a nest, lay their eggs, and so on. And when the young have fledged and left the nest, many birds start to molt or to shift the feathers. Many birds replace all the feathers on the body every year. That's an important function to do because the feathers are we call it weared throughout the year. So, but all these changes, they have to plan how to migrate maybe from Africa back to Norway. They need to start to do this a long time in advance, both physical and physiological. They have to start to be able to produce an egg and start the breeding season. So, but again, you can study this in many other countries. We can read about a lot of studies in other countries, but how can we use them? How can we transfer these results to Norway? Just show one figure down here. I don't go in detail, but it's a two population of one small bird, stone chat. They're birds from Europe and from Siberia. They should be quite like, but if you raised the youngs on the same photo period and dark and light was 12 hours each, but still they have differences in the growth of the testis size. So if you wanted to study this effects of light in Norway, we can't use result from Siberian because that will be totally wrong. We need to have our own results in this case to be able to know what to do. So that's because I can conclude my talk to say that it's very important that we can keep up and meet like this, and what to call this project Axolotl can cooperate with Norwegian researchers to try to find study this in Norway and Poland, maybe also in other countries. But often because if you can look at the differences from different sites, you can also learn a lot of the different results. So then I will end my talk.
All right. Thank you very much, Arne, for this incredible lecture. It was very interesting to hear all this information, especially from a different Norwegian point of view. I think that everyone definitely learned something new today about how light impacts nature. Okay, now the time has come for our traditional small quiz. So I will now ask everyone to look into the Zoom chat. And as always, the first person to answer the question correctly will win a little reward, which will be sent to the winner. Arne, if you could maybe ask the question, and in the meantime, we will send the question in 3 languages in the Zoom chat, in Norwegian, English, and Polish. So can you read the question?
Well, I can take it in Norwegian and English. Hvilken insektgruppe I stand til å orientere ved hjelp av Melkeveien? In English, what group of insects is able to navigate by using the Milky Way?
Okay, and now looking into the chat, we have some Polish answers. Żuki gnojaki, so dung beetle. So I think we have a winner. It's
Already?
yeah, it was very fast. So we have many people that actually listened and know the presentation. So congratulations to Magdi 2 for answering the question correctly. Okay, so since we have a winner, we will talk individually with you to arrange the sending of this reward. Now we have some time, short time for the questions from the chat to our lecturer. So if anyone has any quick questions, please post them on the Zoom chat, either in English or in Polish. And we've had a question from Vale to Arne. Does the European Union have a legislation about mitigation measures against light pollution? And what about Norway?
I know that some European countries, like Czechoslovakia and France, have rules and laws against it. But otherwise, I don't know the situation in other countries, in EU especially. But in Norway, as I told you, there's nothing. There are no laws, no regulations. But I hope to be able to, or this organization, Bevar Mørket, can produce a brochure that can tell people what to do.
Okay, so thank you for answering this question. I don't see any more questions for now. So we would like to ask you for one more thing, all participants. If you could maybe rate our meeting, whether you enjoyed it or not. So please post your rating in the chat. A number between 1 and 6, where 6 is the highest rating and 1 is the lowest rating. So yeah, please post your ratings.
I can do. Well, I give it the highest score because I don't know. Do you get one? It was a high score. So I think this meeting was quite interesting, and also how that so many families can join these meetings and
Yes. Exactly.
learn something about it.
Yes, exactly. And that's great. So now that I don't see any more questions, I think we will be finishing our meeting. So biggest thanks to our great lecturer, Arne Follestad. It was a pleasure to listen to you today. Thank you everyone for participating in today's meeting, and see you at the next lecture, which will happen somewhere in March. It's going to be conducted by an expert from Dark Sky Slovenia. So stay tuned for further information, which will be posted on our websites and on the Facebook and Instagram pages of Polaris OPP Association and our partners Bivar Mirke and Dark Sky Slovenia. So we would like to also ask Social Dialogue Council members to stay with us for 10 more minutes for the next online meeting, which will be conducted in Polish by Piotr Nawalkowski and Patryk Bończyk from Polaris OPP Association. And I think that's it for now. So thanks everyone once again, and have a good night. Thank you, Arne, once again.
Yeah, same to you. And I leave the meeting and go home. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.